بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. قال الشيخ علاء الدين المرداوي الحنبلي تغمده الله برحمته وأسكنه فسيح جنته ونفعنا به وبعلومه وعلوم مشايخنا في الدارين آمين. فائدة: الفائدة أمر ذو تعلق بالموضوع، لكن تعلقه أضعف من أن يدرج في النسيج. لا يكون نسيجا واحدا في نسيج الموضوع، لا يكون نسيجا واحدا حينئذ. I forgot that this is in English actually. الفائدة means a benefit. A benefit means it is relevant, there is relevance, but it's not the strongest relevance. Hence, it is mentioned, but it does not really help the unity of what is being discussed. It sounds like a break that we are taking from the original topic, but it is relevant because we are still talking about cases of التواتر or المتواتر or something like this. Hence it's beneficial. It is beneficial to know it, but it's not a continuation of what has been discussed so far. That's why we say the relevance is weaker if compared. He says يكون التواتر في الكتاب والسنة والإجماع. التواتر happens in القرآن, in السنة and الإجماع. فأما الكتاب فقد تقدم أن القراءات السبع متواترة، وكذلك العشر على الأصح، وتقدم أحكام التواتر في ذلك. He says that the 7 qira'at are mutawatir, and similarly the 10 qira'at are mutawatir according to the chosen position or the relied upon position. And we have already mentioned what the rulings of tawatur on that. He means that he already mentioned them. We didn't read that part in the book. This is the example of how tawatur happens in the Quran. All these recitations are mutawatir. وأما الإجماع فالمتواتر فيه كثير. الإجماع, there are a lot of cases in which الإجماع is mutawatir, and they narrate that people had an ijma' on so and so, and it often happens because the masail of al-ijma' are few or fewer than the other masail. Usually when people narrate them, they narrate like masses narrate them or transmit them, and this maintains the hujjiyya or the strength of al-ijma' as evidence in a lot of cases. وأما السنة فالمتواتر فيها قليل جدا. If compared with the number of al-ahadith that has been narrated from the companion from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the number of ahadith that has been narrated, very few ahadith are reaching, or very few ahadith reach the level of التواتر. قليل جدا, very few. حتى إن بعضهم نفاه, to the extent that some scholars said there is no mutawatir in the hadith, because they think of المتواتر as المتواتر اللفظي, يعني something whose wording has been mutawatir, for it's the same words, the same expressions, not just the meaning. It becomes easier if we just consider the meaning, but you want the words to be mutawatir, the words to be transmitted according to the conditions or according to the criteria that we've mentioned in our explanation يعني in this chapter of التواتر. حتى إن بعضهم نفاه إذا كان لفظيا. Yeah? وهو أن يتواتر لفظه بعينه, as I explained it, that the words themselves are narrated by more than one person, more than one source, more than one isnad. So some people said it never happened. لا ما إذا كان معنويا, and they do not really reject that the tawatur happened, التواتر المعنوي, يعني the tawatur of the meaning, not the words in this case. So they say yeah, it can happen, and it happened. كان يتواتر معنى في ضمن ألفاظ مختلفة, when a meaning is transmitted even though it is transmitted through different wordings, and this is the tawatur of the meaning. Sometimes there are slight differences between the ahadith or between the narrations. The slight differences do not make or do not affect the way we perceive التواتر. So it can be still, it can be considered متواتر لفظي, or the tawatur of the words, tawatur of the statements, the wording. It can still be considered متواتر لفظي if there are insignificant differences. Yes. Like a couple of words that do not affect the meaning, or do not change the meaning, or a slight change in the meaning, but at the end of the day there is something that is agreed upon. There is a bigger common part that is agreed upon. So this does not really affect التواتر. However, we are talking when we talk about different ahadith, like the ahadith of al-ijma'. This is a very good example. The ahadith that are narrated on the agreement of the ummah, when the ummah agree on something that this is a proof. All these ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ are claimed to reach the level of tawatur, but they are really different. All these are different incidents, different wordings, and they are not the same hadith. Actually, they are so many different hadith, but they agree on, or they have something in common, this meaning of this ummah when agreed, when it agrees on something, it cannot be a mistake, or it cannot be incorrect. ولو كان المعنى المشترك فيه بطريق اللزوم. When we talk about this common meaning amongst different ahadith, even if this meaning is like deduced because it is what something in the hadith necessarily leads to, it is something that some words or some, so this meaning is not in the hadith, it is the necessary consequence of what's in the hadith. Al-luzum, yes, that A leads to B. Yani, the common meaning is B. We find it in 20 ahadith, for instance. In one of them, we do not find B itself. We find A, which necessarily leads to B. So even this is considered. This is called lazim. So he's talking about the luzum. Yes, this is called lazimun bayyinun bil ma'na al-akhas. This is my opinion, that the luzum here has to be interpreted as lazimun bayyinun bil ma'na al-akhas. أنا محتاج بس قلم معلش. We are talking about al-lazim al-bayyin bil ma'na al-akhas. If you do not understand what this is, it is something that the mashayikh who are supervising the broadcasting of these durus, or the sharing of these durus with you, they will be able to tell you what this is, or they will be able to give you the explanation of what this is, because I explained it so many times before. If you do not want to go through all this, because you are a very lazy student, shame on you, just understand it like this. I'm not saying that A leads to B and B leads to C and C leads to D, hence A leads to D. I'm saying A leads to B. That's it. It's that close, that short. لازم بينهم بالمعنى الأخص. This is the lazim that we consider in التواتر المعنوي, or this type of التواتر in which the meaning becomes متواتر even though the wording is or the wordings are different. Yeah. Just let me write this quickly. That when he says بطريق اللزوم, I would say something like والمعتد به والمعتد به هو اللزوم. I always say some of my students are like the fountain pens. اللزوم البين بالمعنى الأخص. I always say some of my students are like the fountain pens. Sometimes I abandon one of my fountain pens, then I am in need of it. I want it now to write, to produce something, and it just produces immediately. I do not need to shake it. I do not need to run it. I do not need to use some ink. It just it works immediately. It's always ready. Yes, and I'm not talking about expensive fountain pens, by the way. Some of them are really cheap. Yeah, you appropriate everything now. I'm saying, because the analogy is really complicated. And some of my fountain pens, it's great. It's the nib is great, and it produces the ink in a very nice way. But if I abandon it for a couple of days, maybe for a day or a day and a half, I go back and I find that it's not working, and maybe sometimes the ink needs to be refilled or something to that extent. Do not be like this type of fountain pens. Try to be like the other type, the better type, the one that is always ready, even if it does not possess the best of qualities. This was a little bit of Tarweeh for those who are missing the episodes of Tarweeh, because these durus are recorded, and I am probably talking to you now. If you are listening to this, probably I'm away doing something in khalwa or whatever. So yeah. This is the meaning of اللزوم, and I think this is clear now. Necessarily, if you allow اللزوم, you allow التضمن, and you allow المطابقة. المطابقة is خلاص, we've already discussed المطابقة. You allow التضمن as well when something is included or subsumed. Yes, it's fine. This is just the consequence of allowing اللزوم. This is a very good point, and I think it's very beneficial. ويسمى التواتر المعنوي وسيأتي التنبيه عليه في المتن. And the editor tells us that this will be on page 1769. Okay, so this is called the التواتر المعنوي, and he will talk about it later. This is great. عليه في المتن هو التواتر اللفظي. Also التواتر اللفظي will be discussed قريبا soon. طيب، جزاكم الله خير، شكرا. وقد قال الأكثر إن حديث من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار متواتر فإنه قد نقله من الصحابة الجم الغفير. The majority of scholars said that the hadith من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار is a mutawatir hadith, because it has been narrated by big groups of the companions, like great numbers of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قال ابن الصلاح أبو عمرو ابن الصلاح الحافظ المحدث الأصولي رضي الله عنه: يصلح أن يكون هذا مثالا للمتواتر من السنة. This is a perfect example, or this is a working example of what can be mutawatir in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ويعقب ويعقب عليه بوصف غيره من الأئمة عدة أحاديث بأنها متواترة. يعقب عليه يعني like تعقب، يعني you're seeking a commentary on something because there is something that you want to not to criticize, but there is something that like motivates you, that makes you in need of commenting. So there's something that you want to say, because it's not enough to leave that statement there without commenting on it. But this is a ta'qib. It's like reply. This is what it means, a reply or a comment. Yes. He says that what is yani we can say in commenting on this that other aim other than him describe a number of ahadith that they are mutawatir. They describe a number of ahadith that they are mutawatir. What does this mean? As if they are telling him there are other ahadith that are mutawatir, so it's not just من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Sheikh Abu Amr ibn Salah just said that this is a good example, a working example of al-mutawatir, and it's an example that will not allow objections, because everyone would agree that it is mutawatir. He did not say that that the mutawatir does not exist anywhere else. However, Abu Amr ibn Salah could have had very strict conditions for something to be mutawatir. Yes, which is fine. Anyway, some a'imma described a number. Idda does not mean a big number, it's just few ahadith that they are mutawatir. And he is mentioning these ahadith or some of the examples. كحديث ذكر حوض النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أورد البيهقي في كتاب البعث والنشور روايته عن أزيد من 30 صحابية وأفرده المقدسي بالجمع. قال القاضي عياض وحديثه متواتر بالنقل. حديث ذكر الحوض, the fountain of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم on the day of judgment, or the fountain of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم in general, has been narrated by al-Bayhaqi in the book of al-Ba'th wal-Nushur. It has been published. It has been narrated from more than 30 companions, and Al-Hafiz Al-Maqdisi also gathered these narrations. Wal-Qadi Iyad said that it is mutawatir. Also he said وحديث الشفاعة قال القاضي عياض بلغ التواتر. القاضي عياض said that it reaches the level of التواتر. وحديث المسح على الخفين قال ابن عبد البر رواه نحو 40 صحابية. It has been narrated by roughly 40 companions. واستفاض وتواتر, and it reached the level of التواتر as well. Some of the scholars said مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب ورؤية شفاعة والحوض ومسح خفين وهذه بعض. These are ahadith, examples of ahadith that reached the level of التواتر. ابن حزم في المحلى said قال ابن حزم في المحلى نقل تواتر يوجب العلم. He said that a transmission that reaches the level of التواتر necessitates certainty or knowledge or العلم, certainty. قال ومن ذلك أحاديث النهي عن الصلاة في مرابض الإبل وحديث النهي عن اتخاذ القبور مساجد وحديث قول المصلي ربنا ولك الحمد إلى آخره. So he mentioned different examples here. These ahadith, like the prayer where camels stay or where camels are gathered and stay. The hadith of the prohibition of making al-qubur places on which you perform sujood. Also the hadith of saying Rabbana wa lakal hamd after raising or rising up after a ruku', and other things that Ibn Hazm apparently mentioned in المحلى. He says وجوابه, apparently this is not the case. وجوابه ذلك يحتمل أن مراد قائل ذلك بالتواتر إنما هو المشهور كما يعبر به كثيرا عنه. The answer or the response to something like this is that there is a possibility that what has been intended by the author of these words when he says التواتر or when he claims التواتر is that these ahadith reach the level of الشهرة or that they are مشهور. What does it mean that they are مشهور? Then he continues and he says أو أنها متواترة معنى أو غير ذلك, that it reaches the level of التواتر but the linguistic تواتر, that there are a lot of ahadith that came describing this or telling this or confirming this meaning, which means that they reach the level of الشهرة actually, because al-mashhur is the narration of four or more, yes, for more than one root on the same thing, like confirming the same thing. But this is something that can be called mutawatir from a linguistic perspective, but not from the technical perspective though. Or any other possibility, I think we have to consider the original possibility that he considers them mutawatir. And their objection is that that these ahadith lack what is required for التواتر. But this does not negate that he meant it to be mutawatir. Yani his introduction, actually, thanks to them we understand this, because they bring us this extract from al-Muhalla. They bring they brought it to our attention properly, because it begins with خبر تواتر يفيد اليقين, or as he said, نقل تواتر يوجب العلم. يعني he began his statement with the fact that if it's transmitted, if the transmission is mutawatir, if the transmission is mutawatir, then it benefits you certainty or knowledge. Yes. طيب, what is your objection? Your objection is وإلا فالواقع فقدان شرط التواتر في بعض طبقاته. These ahadith do not reach the level of tawatur in some of its levels, like some of the generations, some of the levels. They do not, in these levels, we do not have all what is required for a tawatur. I understand, but was Ibn Hazm aware of this? Yeah, maybe Ibn Hazm saw things differently. We can discuss it with him and we can say, yeah, this is a mistake. But at the end of the day, this is how he perceived it. But this is the possibility that has been neglected. Yes. And I think this is in good faith, as you say, or like for good reasons, you do not want to say that Ibn Hazm made a mistake. You were trying to find him an excuse. I understand, but this does not change the fact that we have to consider this possibility. وقال الحافظ شهاب الدين ابن حجر في شرح البخاري. I think we will read this next درس إن شاء الله. والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم. وصلي اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.